Hi, my name is Chris Herzog. A lot of you probably don't know me, but I've been in the background in a lot of gaming things, and I've been gamer for close to, yeesh, maybe 45 years. Um, Not quite 45 years. That's too big a number. 40. Let's just say 40. I have been a retailer. I have been a gamer. I've been an outspoken critic, or someone who is good with praise. This is an open letter to my dear friend, and I hope he's my friend, Venger Satanis. Yesterday, he posted a video log telling a story about how a retailer was no longer allowing him to run or sell his games. I was fine with the vlog. I mean, he's talking about something that affected him personally. It can be something that can be very hurtful. Don't get me wrong. As a gamer and an outspoken critic, it does upset me that for a place to be open to every gamer to not allow certain games in, that is upsetting. As a retailer, and I will also add that I have backed Venger's product since Alpha Blue, because I do think it has its merits. It reminds me a lot of the screwball comedies of the 70s to a point. Porky's, even Ice Pirates in the 80s. There has to be an outlet for that kind of behavior or thought. I am a very smart guy, and I do a lot of very smart things. But occasionally I need to get those very low, and I'm not talking low as in a bad thing. I'm talking low as in more in a guttural, juvenile, and that's a wrong word, but I'm just going to use it, to get those, the kind of things the kind of feelings that you laugh at fart jokes, or you find certain comedy sketches funny. There is a need to release that kind of behavior. I'm all for that, because better they express these feelings in a role-playing game than to be actually out on the street emphasizing these behaviors or encouraging the behaviors. Back to my point, though. As a retailer, or having been a retailer, it's very important to note that when you advertise as family friendly, you do have to have certain restrictions. Now, I have never been to Misty Mountain. I do not know what their setup is, so I cannot speak for them. If I worked in places that had private areas where a door could be shut and you couldn't hear what was going on, I would encourage people to go beyond the PG-13 rating, or the PG rating, because kids can't wander in and hear details that they might not want to hear, or they might not be allowed to hear. In an open gaming situation, and I mean open by not having any walls, rooms, etc., all somebody has to do is shout out something that's very profane or risque or naughty, if I'm just going to say it, naughty, that opens up a lot of trouble. Now, what really ticked me off about Venger's post the most was that he immediately brought politics into it. And Venger, my friend, I have been very honest with you all this time, backing you, like I said, since Alpha Blue. It has nothing to do with politics. They're not being woke. They're not being snowflakes. They're not being any number of right-wing terms you could use to describe this. They are retailers. They are being family-friendly. Now, I had a reputation when I was a retailer of being very family-friendly. If somebody started swearing up a storm very loudly, I politely asked them to stop. If they kept going, I asked them to stop again. If at a third time they kept going, I kicked them out. It was that simple, because when you're in a place where there are little kids or can be little kids, you have to be cautious about what you say. The actions of Misty Mountain, from my perspective, were very relevant and very on the point. Did they take things a little too far? Possibly. In some communities, there is actually restrictions on what you can have out on the floor. Because of its sexual content, things like Vampirella were held behind the counter for many, many years. Vampirella, even any of these jiggly books you see nowadays, in comic-wise, you had to hold them behind the counter because the content was too risque for what they considered to be family-friendly. Now, I know you're going to say that's ridiculous. Vampirella is hardly porn. But the whole point is, it's what the community decided. It's what the bigwigs in the area did. Now, this might surprise you, but this was actually 20 to 30 years ago. The time when things like Alpha Blue and Chalt would have been more, I don't want to say mainstream, but it would have been, more people would have embraced it because of the values at the time. They weren't doing it because of politics. They were doing it because it made sense. Now, Venger, I consider you a friend. We don't talk that much, but when we do, we've had really good conversations. And I want you to understand that, like you, I'm a parent. I have a lovely pair of 7 or soon to be 8, an 8 and a 10-year-old daughter. Now, I keep my Alpha Blue books and I keep my Chalt books with all my other role-playing books, but up out of the way so they can't get to it. I do this with all my books that I consider precious, expensive, or ones I just don't want them touching. So I'm not isolating your books because of their, well, slightly I am because of their content, but the whole point is they're with my other role-playing books and they're out of the general reach of the kids. But this is including things like Tunnels and Trolls, Top Secret, Eric Bloat's rather well done Survive This Vigilante City. And it's not based on who did it. What it's based on, from my perspective, is the fact that it's gonzo, okay? That's what it is. It's gonzo. And I, as a retailer, if I was in an open plan environment, I wouldn't want somebody shouting out, I stab him in the, what. It's kind of hard even when I'm just by myself to even say things like that sometimes. Or, anything, any kind of thing that can come up with Alpha Blue or Chalt. And you yourself has said it's a sex crawl dungeon. Venger dude, I've read everything you've put out. I've backed almost everything you've put on Kickstarter. And I still will, because I appreciate it for what it is. But that doesn't mean I'm going to be running a game with it for my 8 and 10-year-olds, because it's not appropriate for children of their age. And yes, you could make the argument that they're seeing worse on TV or hearing worse in songs. At that point, it's not up to the kids. It is up to the parents to be responsible for what their kids see and hear. Now, when people go to game stores, the parents aren't always there. So as retailers, we have to step up and provide an environment that's safe for them because we want them to come back. We want them to be potential customers and customers for decades to come to help keep us open. But if you're providing an environment where people are going to be shouting out gonzo terms, that's, from a retailer perspective, that's something you have to control or kibosh. Understand, my friend, it is not politics. They're not being woke. They're not being, whatever term you want to throw at it. When you start shouting out terms like that, you're not owning your responsibility as a game designer, as a parent, and someone who does go to game stores. You have to understand that not everybody is over 18. Not everybody is as aware of things as you and I, as older folk, might be aware of. And the biggest argument that came to my head when I did watch all your stuff. It kind of irritated the crap out of me, like I said, when you started bringing out the right-wing politics. But here's the whole point, too, that I think you misunderstand in all of this. And it seems to be a point people have missed a lot about businesses the last few years. It's called the no shoes, no shirt, no service. What people of both minds, and I'll just say it, both sides of the political spectrum, seem to think is that stores, businesses of any kind, are public property. They're not. That is why people for a long time were the no shoes, no shirt, no service. The minute you walk in that door, you are on private property. And as a business, you have the right to say what or what doesn't go on. No vaping, no smoking, no running around with a shirt on your head and your, whatever. I think you get the meaning of that. So legally, within every right, they had the right to do that. Maybe they got a complaint from someone. Maybe, and I'm just going to say maybe it was a knee-jerk reaction to what you were saying and the content you were providing. But they have every right to do it. Just as you have every right to tell me that you will not accept any more backing from me. You have every right to say that as a company, as a producer, as a person. You have every right to block me on Facebook, to not accept my emails anymore. Whatever. That is your right. But it is not your right to force your viewpoint or perspective on a business because you don't feel what they did is right. A business is a private entity, just as you are, and they have every right to be discriminatory as you feel they are being. That said, the rights, obviously if they put up a sign that said no black people, no Hispanics, or any number of things they could discriminate against, yes, that is discrimination. But to say we're not going to sell your product anymore or allow you to run games because of the adult content, that's legitimate. Very legitimate. And I think right now the most important thing you can do to save face is own up to that. Yes, I make a product that is inappropriate for people under a certain age. Say 16. Okay? You need to own up to that. And you need to realize that businesses are going to do what they need to do to stay in business. And if losing one customer over something like this is going to make every other customer happy, I think that would be a business decision I could even make myself. If I still had my store, you'd be welcome to run Chalt, but during certain times when I knew kids wouldn't be there. You just got to understand that not everything is political. And I think, buddy, you need to just forgive and forget. So one store has turned you down, kicked you out. That's their problem, not yours. Especially if you're a regular customer. They just lost your money. And they know that. But do they think that loss is greater than losing family after family because some guy is running a game with people shouting out inappropriate things? Even the Pokemon players and the smattering players. Yeah, you know what? That makes money. When I had to close my store, I lost money because I couldn't afford Magic anymore. Magic the Gathering put me out of business because I had to make a choice between paying bills or paying for Magic. Take it as what it is, my friend. After all this, I will still consider you my friend because you speak your mind, and I think that is important. But what is also important is not to force it on others.